Yo guys, Paunchy here, and today I'm going to show you how to use the echo freeze delay on your Octatrack. Let's go. Alright, so first things first, I have my Digitact plugged in mono into one input on the Octatrack, and I have that set up through with a through machine. I have the source set to C, input C, and I have the volume all the way up. And then I also have track 8 set to the master track. So that's how I have this set up right now. I do have a song queued up on my Digitact here, and I was going to use that to show you guys how to use the freeze delay. Now keep in mind you can use it with any track, any number of tracks on the Octatrack. You can use it with the master track like I'm doing. If you don't have the master track set, that will just be an 8th track that you can do it with. So as you may have noticed, at least when I first got my Octatrack, this was one of the first things I wanted to do. If you go down function down to delay control, I knew that the Octatrack was capable of doing this, but when I went to try and do it, it didn't do anything. So I'm going to show you today how to set up your delay so that way you can use the freeze delay. And I'll show you some variations because there's actually a lot of depth to the Octatrack. I know, crazy, right? But there's actually a lot of depth to the delay itself, so there's a lot of different things you can do. So first off, track 8, I'm going to go to the delay setup. I have the delay on FX2. So you tap FX2 twice to get to the setup. Bam. Now keep in mind, if you want to do the freeze delay on each track individually, you have to do this setup for every single track. Or, every single track that you want to do it on. Right now, I have the master on track 8, so I can, I don't need to set any more tracks. I want it to affect the whole thing. So that's why I have that. So I won't be going into any of the other tracks and doing stuff. So anyway, I'm going to go through each parameter here in the delay setup and just kind of either tell you or show you what each one does, so you can make your own decision on how you want to set up your freeze delay. So first things first, the X is ping pong. So that will make your delay a ping pong delay, and all that means is that the delay will go back and forth between the left and the right speaker. So I have mine set on because I think that sounds cool. But that's a stylistic choice, of course. So tape, this is one of the things that you essentially have to have on in order to do those cool, like, rewindy tape noises. That's why it's called tape, because it makes the delay act as if you're like taking if you've ever been, I guess, lucky enough to use a tape machine that has an actual speed knob, if you move the speed knob back and forth, it kind of makes a, weird, like, rewindy kind of sound, And interestingly enough, the slower the tape goes, the lower the pitch. The faster it goes, the faster the pitch. So, but that doesn't really apply to this. So, anyway, direct. Just leave that all the way up. That's all the way up by default. So actually, one thing you can do with the DIR setting here in the delay setup is if you have the freeze delay infinitely going, like so, you can actually use the DIR as like a fade out, and it will just leave the delay playing. So basically what DIR controls is whether or not you have, how much dry signal you have playing with the delay. So if you take DIR down, the dry signal fades out, and then all that's left is the wet signal. And then you can play around with that. Quick little aside there. Sync, this is where, well, sync is simple. It's just basically if you want the delay to be synced up with the tempo that you have set, either set by the Octatrack or set by an external device. In my case, the Digitact is actually the MIDI master. Then it will stay synced to that tempo, you know. So I've always had it on. I haven't explored yet turning it off, but I'm sure you can find some interesting things to do with that. So there's an opportunity for some of you to try that. But for this purpose, we'll leave it on. Oh, and by the way, if you're not sure, 0 on the left is off and 1 on the right is on, just to make that clear. So lock and pass. This is where things get really, really interesting, and this is where it matters, you know, how they're set. So I'm going to leave lock on, and I'm going to leave pass on. I already had it turned on. By default, it'll be off. So you're going to want to turn both of those on. So, okay, let's get out of the delay control menu there. So I'm going to start this pattern I have in the Digitact. It's off screen, but, you know, you don't have to worry about that. Okay, so the way I have everything set. Oh, I guess first we should talk about the parameters here in the regular delay section. Time by default, I believe, is set to 48. So just go ahead and leave it there. FB, which is also known as feedback, I have that set to, let's go ahead and set it all the way for now, and I'll show you what that does. You know, if you've ever used like a delay guitar pedal or something, you'll know what that parameter does, but I'll show you here. Volume, quite literally, is the volume of the delay. So you know, that you have some leeway with that. I imagine most people would want to leave it all the way up, but there will definitely be times where you might want to turn it down a little bit. So bass, go ahead and leave that at 48. Width, leave it maxed. And then the send, go ahead and set that to 1 for now. So, okay, I'm going to start this track. Oh, and real quick, before we start the track, so you're on the delay control trig mode. 1 through 8 controls times. As you can see, the buttons are yellow. Yeah, so those are the delay times. These basically correspond to the time parameter in the delay menu here. So 9 through 16, they correspond to each individual track. 9 is track 1, 10 is track 2, 11 is track 3, and so on. So track 8 corresponds to trig number 16. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start the track. I'm going to hold down 16, and you're going to hear what it does. Okay, so as you can see, it's going forever. It's if I leave my finger on there, the delay will infinitely keep going. So, and then another cool trick you can do from here is change the speed. This is where that tape parameter comes in the delay menu. So if you change the speed, you can kind of hear in the background that the delay gets faster. Once you go super high, the delay just kind of like goes off into oblivion. So if you try to come back down, the delay's gone. Like, it's already lost all of its momentum, basically. So another interesting thing you can do, the reason it's set to 6 is because of the time. 48 corresponds to this trig right here, this speed on this on the delay control. So the lower the number goes, the higher or the faster the delay goes, basically. So a cool thing you can do is you basically increase the speed and then immediately lower the speed. So here, I'll try it again. The speed is 48 right now on 6. I'm gonna set it up here. Okay, we'll start over. And then go immediately down to like 7, for example. Basically, every time you change the speed, you know, it changes the sound of the delay. I mean, there's some crazy sounds you can achieve with this stuff. Like I said, the best thing I can compare it to is to all the guitarists out there, or just anyone that's used a delay pedal. If you've ever used a delay pedal and messed around with the knobs, this is basically the equivalent of that. So, okay. So now where it gets really interesting, let's go back into the delay menu, delay setup here, excuse me, and let's turn lock off and see what happens. In fact, let me start the loop, the pattern first, and then I'm going to turn lock off and then listen to what happens. So as you can hear, the delay is basically doing the opposite of when I was pressing 16. So if you remember before, when I was pressing 16 to enable the delay for the master track, it was going infinitely. So now if you turn lock off, it basically does that just on its own. So I'm sure, as you can imagine, having lock off in a lot of settings, in a lot of instances, is not the ideal thing to do. But I'll show you something interesting you can do with lock. So say you set your send all the way up to 127. You're sending more of the track to the delay. Hopefully my Octatrack doesn't explode here on me. But what you're doing is you're sending more of the track to the delay. So it's kind of creating a snowball effect where it kind of like the delay like builds on top of each other and it just gets like bigger and bigger. So you might ask yourself, like, how do I control this stuff? It's controlled by the feedback parameter. So if you take the feedback, turn it down. Excuse me. Take the feedback, turn it down. And you no longer have the crazy infinite delay that you had before. Now keep in mind, if you have lock on and you're holding down the track that you want the delay to be enabled for, you can achieve this same effect, basically. Like, you can switch, if you take feedback, you can switch between like the infinite snowball delay and then like reeling it back into where the delay is like not even noticeable. So you can kind of, you know, do this like crazy back and forth thing. What's another way to do that, you might ask? Take your LFO, one of your LFOs, and set it to modulate the feedback parameter, and then it'll basically do this for you. So yeah, things can get pretty crazy. So, okay. So let's see, another thing you can do. If you set send to 0, you won't have any delay at all, because you're not sending any of the track to the delay. So you might ask yourself, for lock to work, you have to set it to 1. It's really weird. Like it might get confusing, but you need to just try this stuff out for yourself. So if you have lock on and you have your send set to 1, if you turn it down to 0, it's basically the equivalent of if you have lock turned off and your send all the way up to 127. You see what I'm saying? I understand that might be confusing, but and the other interesting thing about setting the send to 0 is it actually doesn't do the infinite delay. Okay. It does, it's just not as pronounced as like setting lock off and setting the send all the way up. So that's kind of just something you can play with, you know. But to me, one of the funnest things to do is basically use the actual delay control, trig mode, and then use it to just do this kind of stuff. Biggest thing, like, honestly, that infinite feedback thing can get kind of obnoxious after a while. So something you can do is to just turn the feedback down. And that way it kind of just like fades out on its own, you know what I mean? Like that, for example. You can use it to just create like a one-shot kind of delay thing. Keep in mind, this is for the master track though. So if you wanted, you could set just one track to the delay control, or you could just set them all, but that means that you'll be using up an FX slot that you might not want to use up, you know. So that's kind of the compromise with the Octatrack is, you know, if you want the echo freeze delay, like you're gonna have to sacrifice an FX track. So, you know, all you got to do is ask yourself, do I want to sacrifice an FX track for the master track, or do I want to do that on individual tracks, you know? So that's a little bit of my thought process behind doing the freeze delays and stuff. So I hope you guys take that info and do with it what you will, make some crazy stuff. You know, by no means did I cover every single thing, every single element in regards to the delay, but you know, we did cover a lot of ground today on so, you know, I hope you guys have some different tricks that you can do. You know, the biggest thing I think with the Octatrack, you know, it's really confusing at first, but the best thing to do is to choose something that you want to do, like in your head, and then go about doing what you have to do to learn that one thing, and then master that one thing. You know what I mean? There's so many things the Octatrack can do. It's frankly just overwhelming. You know, like, so if you want to do a freeze delay, you know, with an infinite repeat, you know, work on doing that first before you move on to other aspects of the delay, you know. So that's that for today, and hope you guys liked the video. And if you received value from this, go ahead and leave a like and subscribe if you want more of these type of videos. Right now, I'm on a big Octatrack kick. Also, some of the Moog stuff I'll be doing as well. But right now, you know, I'm pretty set on doing tutorials for Octatrack stuff that took me forever to learn, you know, and so hopefully you guys will learn this stuff in the fraction of the time that it took me. So, yeah. So go ahead and ring the bell. If you're a subscriber, ring the bell, and it will tell you when I'm going live and when I post videos and such. And yeah, thank you guys. Leave any comments down below if you have any questions about this stuff. And you know, if you want me to make a certain type of video, feel free to leave a comment, and yeah, I'll get to it. So have a good one, guys, and I'll see you next time.